What a day to be alive. He is Mark Malusis, a.k.a. Moose. I am Keith Irizarry. It's Bettor Sports Network. And you would think, you know what? It's Thursday. The first round is officially starting today. March Madness. That's where we begin, right? No. You would think, hey, maybe let's talk some baseball. Puerto Rico, big win over the Dominican Republic yesterday, eliminates the DR, but then you got Edwin Diaz, the injury there that we don't have full clarity on yet. That's a good opening point.
That is.
We won't start there. We're not going to start there, though.
No.
We're not.
Where are we starting?
Aaron says yes, he's going to be a Jet. Moose, did you watch the live show with McAfee?
Yeah. How could you not?
And I thought it was clever that McAfee continued. By the way, he's a genius in this media world with how he has marketed himself and that show and that brand. Clever to continue to mention the number of viewers that were watching. Like, I laughed when he was like, oh, yeah, it's just, 430,000 people watching right now. Like, just a little uptick.
I thought it was awesome.
Watching Rodgers talk, Moose.
Yeah.
Did you come away liking him more or less? Or did it not change anything for you? Before we get to what it means for the Jets, I'm fascinated. I meant to ask you this yesterday, not on the air, like just texting, and I forgot to text you last night.
Did it? I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe a little bit more. I mean, I don't know. I think my perception of Aaron Rodgers really didn't change all that much. Why did it do it? Did it change for you?
No, you know what? Actually, I found myself wondering how he was going to get ripped today, because I feel like, and I know we're in the media, right? And I know that it's, like, I have friends of mine that don't like the media, and then they go, oh yeah, but you don't count, right? Like, cause you're my friend, but you don't count. And I was waiting to see how he was going to get ripped today. And it seems like so many, and I was bouncing from network to network and show to show, just trying to get a feel for what people were thinking. Seems like everyone's ripping him for trying to play like it's the Packers that screwed this up, and it's the Packers that are moving on from him. I didn't get that vibe. Like, I felt like Aaron Rodgers was pretty darn honest, and that he just decided that he wanted to figure out what he wanted to do. When he came out of the darkness, he felt like the Packers didn't want him anymore, so let's move on. And he decided he still wants to play. I kind of liked him more after yesterday than I did before.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's in certain instances he talked out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, so he went into the darkness, 90% retired, came out and was bothered by the fact that maybe not maybe, but the Green Bay Packers had kind of moved on and were shopping him around the National Football League when, if you go into that, live like a hermit, for, as he said, 4 days and 5 days and 4 nights. If you went into it looking retired, he came out of it and said, I definitely want to play football. He came out of it a little bit more bothered by the fact that the Packers weren't necessarily committed to him. And then you get that, and then you get the scenario, okay, well, they weren't honest and open with him at the end of the football season. Well, you got to also understand, I'm not trying to take the Packers side of things here. I mean, they've been through kind of the ringer for the last 3 years trying to placate Aaron Rodgers as well, given the fact of how he has handled stuff too. So you want to talk about how he handled veterans, and I saw Greg Jennings yesterday backing up what Aaron Rodgers has to say, and the whole idea, well, they'd rather get rid of you a year too early than a year too late. Yeah, there's a lot of teams in the National Football League do that. I mean, the New England Patriots.
I was just going to say, isn't that the blueprint for the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, the New England Patriots do that over and over. I mean, your Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman. Yes. There were the reports out of the Super Bowl saying that the Eagles learn from their past mistakes. They don't want to get old real quick. And he felt like they did as an organization. After the last time they won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles at quarterback and beat the New England Patriots. So there was a learning lesson there to where, yeah, if there's not a lot of tread left on the tire, regardless of what you did for an organization, you've been well paid for that organization. You've been a longstanding member. They're probably going to move on from you sooner rather than later. Maybe they could do it a little bit better. Maybe the communication could be a little bit better. It struck me as kind of a child scorned kind of a mentality from Aaron Rodgers. Now, that's fine. I think it helps the Jets. Like all of what he had to say yesterday to Pat McAfee. I was talking to somebody yesterday off air that covers the NFL, and I said, "Well, am I fair to assume that Rodgers is looking to rip the NFL a new one?" And he said, "Absolutely," or she said, "Absolutely." I mean, so, and what I mean by that is that you're going to get a very, very highly motivated Aaron
Scorched earth.
Rodgers when he comes to New York and when he plays for the Jets. Clearly, he's ticked off. We know how he's an immortal quarterback, a first ballot Hall of Famer, 4-time MVP in the regular season, and a Super Bowl champion. And they are going to come here, and he is going to come here and look to kind of reestablish himself on that level, not just now in the AFC, but in the National Football League. And that's to the benefit of the Jets.
Scorched earth is what I would call it. I think it's going to be all about that for Aaron Rodgers. I had conversations with other people yesterday as well about uh, what should Rodgers do now with the monetary situation. My gut is the money doesn't really matter to Rodgers right now. This is about kind of what you just said, taking the league by storm. I think this is, I want to flip a big middle finger to the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go to the New York Jets and I'm going to win a Super Bowl. And the way to do that is to take a little bit less money, take a haircut now to allow the Jets to fill out that roster with the pieces that he wished for. By the way, I thought that was an interesting portion of the conversation, the wish list part. I think we should get to that as well. Let them fill out the roster the way that he would like them to, and the way the Jets believe can be filled out to win a Super Bowl and compete for a Super Bowl. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a way that he takes less money to be a New York Jet.
I mean, I think, listen, it's $60 million. That's guaranteed. I mean, it really is. So, like, there's so many different layers to it. Like, he came out as like, and I would think you're probably right to kind of continue that conversation, Keith. If I were Aaron Rodgers, but I can't put myself in his shoes and say, well, money doesn't factor when money matters to everybody and the money's coming his way. So it's easy to say, well, I'm going to give a little bit back in order to make this happen. And for me to go to New York and the Jets and try and win a Super Bowl this upcoming season, like how big of a haircut do you want Aaron Rodgers legitimately to take? I mean, he has a massive ego. He's on the air and not batting an eye and said, basically, I'm the greatest Green Bay Packer of ever. I think it's fair to say, or at least I'm in that conversation. So Aaron Rodgers has a great feel of his place in the National Football League. Confidence is not an issue. He didn't even blush when he said it. I mean, he said it like you and I were basically saying, like, hey, the Knicks won a game 2 nights ago. I mean, that's basically how he said it. So give him credit. And he is, you can make the argument, the greatest Packer of all time. He's right there. Should he have accomplished more? For sure. What do I think he's going to do in terms of restructuring that contract? I couldn't say for sure. It's easy for us to go and say, well, go the Brady route, take less, do whatever you need to do to help out the team to try and win a Super Bowl this upcoming season. When you know that money is guaranteed, unless you retire, it's coming your way one way or the other. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is guaranteed that, $58.7 or $58.9 million, nearly $60 million. I hope you're right. I came out of it when he says, well, I'm not here to make an official announcement. The decision was really made last Friday. My intention is, after going through workouts last week, my intention is to continue to play football. And my intention is to play football play quarterback for the New York Jets, as everybody in New York City celebrated. And that's awesome. I mean, that is great. I mean, it's just fantastic. If you're a Jet fan, you smile ear to ear. You worry about how long this is going to last down the line. You don't get concerned about if it's just going to be 1 year for Aaron Rodgers. You're going to get him for 1 year, and potentially you can go out there and win a Super Bowl this upcoming season. I think the Jet fans should be ecstatic by the fact that they're going to get a very, very highly, very talented quarterback to come in and play that position, as he mentioned. And the fact that the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett helped, obviously, in that process when they flew out to California last Tuesday and met with Rodgers for the better part of 4 hours, as he articulated yesterday with Pat McAfee. So I think but he also said, them bringing in, at that time, he didn't necessarily correlate or connect the two, said it would be an insult to Nathaniel Hackett to think that the Jets hired him just to go get Aaron Rodgers. Did it help in the process? For sure, down the line. But initially, he was thinking about just playing for the Green Bay Packers and not playing for the New York Jets. I think you're going to get a very highly motivated player. I think it was a huge day for the Jets. Everything changed and shifted for the Jet organization yesterday when Rodgers made that statement with Pat McAfee. Now the question is what are you going to give up to get him? Because from everything you read out of New York and out of Green Bay is whatever conversations happened before that interview yesterday for the better part of the hour, what the asking price for the Green Bay Packers has shifted after that interview.
So I think the Packers were asking for way too much. And I think that's why there was the holdup probably since Friday. But the problem now is the Packers have zero leverage. Like, they don't anymore. Everyone knows this deal is essentially done. And what are the Packers going to do? They're going to eat the $60 million and let Aaron Rodgers just sit on their bench? No. So they're going to end up trading him, and they're going to make it a fair and reasonable deal. If Lamar Jackson would cost you 2 first-round picks in a trade, Aaron Rodgers will not cost you 2 firsts. Now, he might be 1. He could be a 1 and a 4, could be a 2 and a 3. That's reasonable. There could be conditionals there. There could be 2 2s, and one of them is conditional that if you go, I don't know, to the AFC Championship, it becomes a first-round pick or something like that. That could be. I have no problem with that kind of stuff. This will get done. I think another layer to this, Moose, though, is that June 2nd date, because that was the date where originally things like kind of almost had to be done. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, and if you're viewing this as scorched earth, like I'm calling it, I think you want to get to New York and work with your guys before time. I think you want to Tom Brady this, the way he went to Tampa Bay and worked with his guys and was able to get into a good routine, rhythm, chemistry with the whole crew of wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this has to get done faster than we all kind of expected. Actually, to be honest, you were on top of this. You had said, I mean, kudos to you. You literally said March 15th was your day.
I did a while back.
And you did like 3 weeks ago, you said March 15th. My guess was April 1st. You said at the opening of the league, it was going to be March 15th. You nailed it.
No, I appreciate that, but I thought there'd be some finality to it. To be honest,
I guess that's true. It's not final, right?
I thought we'd be having a presser maybe on Friday or maybe next week. I thought, it's great that his intention is to play for the New York Jets, but still, we sit here and now you wait a little bit longer. And I think the Packers obviously don't, and you might be right that they were initially asking for way too much. I don't know. It's an interesting argument when you talk about leverage in this situation, Keith, and I appreciate the pat on the back. But it's interesting because you want to say, oh, who has the leverage here? Well, the Jets are desperate, so the Packers have leverage. But the Jets also have leverage in this situation because we know Green Bay doesn't want them, and they want to move on to Jordan Love. And Aaron Rodgers can go out there and make this extremely difficult on the Green Bay Packers. And I would even add to this, like, how do you want it to end if you're Green Bay? I mean, Mark Murphy over the weekend when he was at an event talking about Aaron Rodgers in the past tense as a Green Bay Packer. And he's the president, I think the CEO of the Packers organization, right? A former player in the National Football League. If you're old enough, you remember Mark Murphy, and he was a safety for the Green Bay Packers. But like, how do you want this to end? Like, he wants to, as he discussed yesterday with McAfee, he's going to retire a Green Bay Packer. He's not going to retire as a New York Jet. They'll sign him to that one-day contract or whatever it is, and he'll retire.
By the way, I think that's the lamest thing in sports. I don't know about you. To me, it's that one-day contract thing is the lamest thing in sports. We all know who you played for. Whatever.
As Rodgers has scorched earth mentality toward the NFL, do you really want to carpet bomb your relationship with Aaron Rodgers at this stage if you're the Packers? I'm not telling you you're going to give him away, but do right by the player now. I mean, I understand I get the drama, the nonsense, the BS that has come your way. I get it's been a lot about everything else other than football with Rodgers and Green Bay over the last 2 or 3 years. You know, the stuff about vaccinations and the some of the crazy themes or scenarios that he's talked about with with Pat McAfee, all of these interviews that he's done. And that's fine, right? He's a little bit of a different guy. We know he is this. He is a great quarterback. But if you're the Packers, I would say this, you know, now's the time. You're ready to move on. You're ready to find out what Jordan Love is. A guy that has been really the brand of Packers football for the last, 18 years and 15 years as a starter.
Yeah.
Do right by the player. I mean, it's don't hold out till June 1st or middle of the summer or anything like that. Get a deal done. And the Jets are willing to play ball because they want to get this done as well. They want to get him in the fold. They want to get him on the York team, get him, you know, familiar with his teammates. They want to make this because they know this is a short-term solution, not a long-term answer. So they want to get it done as well. It's not like the Jets are not offering you anything, but if you're going to hold pat that you have to get 2 first-round draft choices for a player that you no longer want to play quarterback, you're never going to get it.
The Packers don't have to do anything right away. They should do something. You nailed it. Because the have to part, I mean, they have their quarterback in the future right there. So they can go through all OTAs with Jordan Love if they want. Now, would it be helpful to know what draft picks you're getting if those are coming this year? Sure, that would help your business. That would help your product as well. They don't have to. They should. Our chat, by the way, is blowing up. Feel free to call in, guys. Press the call button if you want to be part of the conversation. I mean, Work and Grind is blaming a bunch of stuff on the Packers. You got Sweet Lou in here ripping Rodgers a little bit, talking about how he just needs to feel loved. And if he's so great, we're stretching it. He only won one Super Bowl, so he's not that great. Better Boss in here. Our boss is saying that Aaron Rodgers is the most unlikable player in the NFL. So, all right, look at this. All it took was for us to start mentioning some of their names. Here we go. Baby J is going to join us now. And Baby J also made a bet with Wally, too, the Puerto Rico-Dominican Republic game, too. So we'll see how that plays out in this phone call. Baby J, what's up, man? How you doing? We got you?
What's good, man? I don't know if you guys can see me. Yeah,
we do.
I'm on the bridge right now, so I might lose you. I'm going to make this quick.
If it's the Throgs Neck Bridge, you lose us.
Go! Do you see the hat? You see the hat?
I do.
Yes.
Met fans are crying this morning, Baby J.
Hey, listen, man. I think I kind of jinxed that. I was texting with some of my boys, and I said, damn, what if like Juan Soto got hurt? It would hurt for the Nationals. For the Padres. And then this happens. I was like, oh, man, I shouldn't have brought that up. So I felt kind of bad. But then
Baby
again,
J,
I don't
are you
feel
on
bad.
are you on the GW right now?
Nah, I'm on the Queensboro Bridge, 59th Street.
Oh, there you go. Very nice. Beautiful.
You pay the toll. Look at you. You go 59th Street Bridge, you don't have to pay the toll. I know you. I see you.
I'm in the dirty work van right now. We don't pay the toll.
Dude, I'm with you. I don't like paying tolls either.
So listen, I just wanted to say I'm excited. We got Aaron, but as a Jet fan, I kind of also feel we need to get this really done because it's not set in stone. The I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed. I don't want to feel like the Mets and it turns out to be Carlos Correa again. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
we got to get this done.
Yesterday, Baby J, here's what you need to know. Yesterday was as good of a day the Jets have had in a long time.
Oh, yeah. I haven't
the
been
fact
this
that Aaron
excited.
Rodgers says, I want to be a Jet. My intention is to play. When he's talking about the fact that he had a really good workout, McAfee follows up. Did you loosen up the arm and he's like,
agree.
Absolutely. And there's never been, it's always been about motivation. This is not Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning at the end. We know Aaron Rodgers could still play an extremely high level, and you're going to get a very, very motivated guy coming to New York looking to not just dominate the AFC East, but take your team to the Super Bowl. That is amazing.
Well, one of my buddies, he's a Niner fan, not you, Jacob Asa, but one Niners fan, and he's texting me, "Oh, you're getting a washed up Aaron Rodgers." I said, "A washed up Aaron Rodgers is still top 10. We haven't had a top 10 quarterback ever.
Yeah.
And with the squad that we have
I
right
have
now, like, listen, I'm not saying Super Bowl because I don't want to get ahead of myself, but man, I could see a 13-4 season, man. I really could. This team is good, and obviously, if
I
everybody
would
stays
settle
healthy,
for a
but,
second. I would temper those expectations because there might be some
nah.
hiccups this season. I think this is an 11-win team that has a chance to win
let's
the
say
AFC
this.
East and they can get
He's
in
a
the playoffs.
Jet. He's a Jet.
They
He's gonna be a
They
Jet.
won 7 games last year with nobody under center. Nobody.
That is true.
Yeah.
Was our shining armor. Who the hell? Nobody knew who the hell Mike White was two seasons ago. That was who we was on. We have Aaron. Wait. Now.
Yeah, I had them at I figured they'd get about 4 wins last year in totality, maybe 5 at most. I had them in 2 wins in the first 10 games of the year. I said there was a chance that they maybe only win 1. I remember saying that. Yes, I whiffed on the Jets last year. I'm wearing it, but
I like the Colts.
it happens. 13 wins sounds like a lot to ask for from 7 to 13. I feel like 11 feels really comfortable. And I bet you the over-under on them will be 10.5.
Yeah, I think it's great.
But I also, I love that Jets fans are excited today.
And here's the deal. Like, if you were one of those that are going to be a detractor of it, shut up. Now it's not. It really isn't. Let the Jet fan hasn't had anything in years. Like, they've been in the darkness. They've been kicking the tin can down the street.
I love that you just used the darkness, by the way.
I mean, they really have been. They have not been. There has been no light at the end of the tunnel. Their claim to fame is Rex Ryan going to 2 straight AFC championship games. How many Jet fans talk about that being the glory days or can't wait Bart Scott after beating the Patriots and then follow up by losing the next week to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road? Like, these are all the things that you look at with the Jets. Herm Edwards, clock management, Chad Pennington, the shoulder injury, Brett Favre, 8-3 before he gets hurt, then Mangini, the man genius, then he gets fired by Woody Johnson. Like, all these things, like, let the Jet fan enjoy it. Yeah. They haven't had much to sit back and enjoy today. If you want to be a naysayer and say Rodgers is washed or it's dramatic or what did he do in the playoffs or what did he do? I see Better Boss. What did he do last year on the that Sunday night game against the Detroit Lions? I don't care. Like, let the Jet fan enjoy the day. They have not seen the sunlight in years. They have actually seen the sun. Let them enjoy the sun.
And ultimately, I don't think it's going to cost that much anyway. All right, let's bring in another caller here. This one might be fascinating. We're going to bring on Wally Montero. And Wally and Baby J had a little bet going yesterday. So are we starting with you paying off your bet, or do you want to talk Jets first? Your choice, man. Dealer's choice.
So I was ready to step out of the darkness like Moose was saying. But then the DR goes and loses. And now I'm back in the darkness because the DR losing. The beautiful island of Puerto Rico is superior to the Dominican Republic.
That had to hurt so much.
It does.
There you go. Now we see you too. That had to hurt so much.
I was in the closet.
Yeah.
Not that kind of closet, but
You're good.
Wally, sorry, tough one last night.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, it was. But, there's hope that in a few years at least we won it. That's all I got to say. We won it before, so I'm happy.
You have won it before, but that was, unfortunately, we might never see the WBC again.
I agree.
We may never. That might be, this might be it for the WBC.
I hope that's not a thing. Like, he was celebrating Diaz. He could have been walking down the street and twisted his knee wrong, too. It wasn't from the playing aspect of it. I really hope that this is not guys can't play in this tournament anymore. I really hope that's not a thing.
But because Keith,
I know it's gonna be.
Wally's into it, and I get it. And listen, this morning I was driving the kids to school on Sirius. I was listening to Italy and Japan on Sirius, right? So. And you wake up at 6:00 in the morning and you got baseball and it's relevant baseball and we all love the sport. But for Major League fans, if you're a Met fan, you're irate today.
I mean,
And
at my bus stop this morning, the poor guy, Mike, he's a Mets fan. I mean, he honestly, like, I'm not even being like over dramatic here. He looked like he lost a family member. Like his face was, he looked at me, he goes, today's a rough day for Mets.
And it's
like
funny
that.
because the minute it happened, I was pissed off. I was angry, but then I started smirking. And the power of Jobu is strong. Sorry, Jay Kabasa. Serves you right.
He's like,
but the power of Jobu lives on.
Right? He's like,
I'll leave you guys alone. I appreciate you. I'm gonna get in trouble for not working right now, but whatever.
Well,
quickly, you happy about Rodgers or no?
Who?
You quickly, you happy about Aaron Rodgers?
I'm very happy about Rodgers, and like you were saying before, I was against Aaron Rodgers, but the interview did change me.
Yeah,
I'm all for Rodgers now.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get this.
All right.
Wally, there you go,
get back to work, man. Later.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers is definitely smug. I mean, he is. That's just his way. But yeah, I found I don't know.
What
I like
about
him
the
better.
interview changed your perception of Rodgers?
I felt like he was the first time in a while. I felt like what he was saying was honest, and he wasn't like even the Adam Schefter stuff. And I think Schefter is fantastic.
Diana Rossini.
Yeah, see that one I didn't love necessarily because it almost
lose my number.
Well, the Rossini part was like, I think her name is Diana Rossini, something like he tried to act like he didn't know who she is.
Yeah.
If you're around this, you know who Diana Rossini is. Like, whatever. She actually was clever on NFL, on whatever the NFL show was on ESPN later in the day. She goes, and if he lost my number, he wouldn't be the first guy that told me to lose my number.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. They all cracked up. But even the Schefter thing, it is true. Like, I'm an athlete. I want you texting me. I want you asking me questions. No, leave me alone. Lose my number. I had no problem with that.
Oh no, I didn't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
but he's different in that way because there's a lot of athletes that quote unquote play the game and want to get their messaging out there, want to get their side of the story or whatever it might be.
I mean, you're out there ignoring people all the time. How many times do people text Moose all the time like, hey, can you do this? Lose my number.
No. I've never.
He did that to me when he found out we were working together, and then he was like, all right, I guess I'll suck it up and work with him.
Well, when you text me, I'm like, who do I know from Long Island?
I avoid Long Island like the plague.
Long Island. I don't know anybody from Long Island.
Island? Get rid of Long Island.
Where in Long Island? Are you Suffolk or Nassau? No, I thought it was.
You sure about this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I would say, if you're just like McAfee, and I was telling somebody else this last night off air that what I think if you're part of Rodgers' inner circle, like AJ Hawk is, like clearly Pat McAfee is.
Yeah. And AJ apparently knew stuff a week ago. He almost got him in trouble.
Around, but but that's because Aaron Rodgers feels like he's in a safe zone. So, and what makes you, I think Rodgers is extremely loyal to people that have been good to him. He was calling out, the guy yesterday, which makes you real. It's just going to be completely different. The guy at the framing shop, or the Indian restaurant that he'd like to go to in Green Bay. Talking about the love for the fans, like you could sense the history, the sense of history, and the fact that this has nothing to do with being a Green Bay Packer. It's nothing to do with the fan base. It's those that are running the organization right now. And I think he, just as he is very loyal, I think guys on that show like McAfee, which I think makes him, he's an extremely likable talent. There's no doubt. You give him a ton of credit for the way that he has built his career and the decisions that he's made, whether it be, initially with Barstool, then breaking off from Barstool, doing his own thing. He's had a number of different homes, but what Pat McAfee has been able to do is, he's different than everybody else. His work ethic is unquestioned, and I think he's extremely loyal to people that have been good to him. So, and I think you could sense that, and that's why Rodgers goes on with Pat McAfee for a better part of an hour yesterday, is that there is a trust factor. Not that he's going to spin stories, but he knows this, is that McAfee's not one that's going to go out there trying to break a story. his relationships with players are real and genuine, and you got that sense yesterday as well, which is a credit to McAfee, the person.
Yeah, I mean, you see players talk about this a lot with the reporters, with the gotcha questions, and all that, and you're not getting that from McAfee.
Yeah, he's fun. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily need to hear about his wiping technique when he was going to the bathroom, but
hey, listen,
that comes along with the territory right now. It was entertaining.
I'm a folder, by the way. You got to fold. Anybody who I don't like people talk about scrunching, you got to fold it. Fold.
That's what you need to do. You need a flat surface.
Yeah, fold. Work and grind now. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, fellas?
What's up? What's up?
I'm a Detroit Lions fan and a folder.
And a folder. Good. Folder is the way to go. Good.
So I think Lions fans are probably happier than Jets fans today.
Explain.
Favre's out of Green Bay.
Oh.
No more. Also, I think Favre's season's going to end the same way it did last year, losing to the Lions at the end of the season.
Yeah. Well,
wait, whoa. That would mean the Jets and Lions are in the Super Bowl.
That would mean that.
I just did math.
There
2 and 2 equals 4, or 1 and 1 equals 2. Wow. Okay.
It would be a very poetic end to Aaron Rodgers' career.
It would be.
I
think if that would mean he'd be losing to Jared Goff and Dan Campbell in the Super Bowl. Listen, the Lions are on the come. There's no doubt.
Losing to Glenn's defense.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn. I think the Lions. I have a uncle that is a huge Lions fan. I'm ecstatic that Detroit is back to some sort of relevancy. I think it's good for the National Football League, like Campbell as a coach, like Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator, and like the fact that Jared Goff has rejuvenated himself once again in Detroit after being left for dead by Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. So give all the credit in the world. I really think, and I know, and Keith and I have talked about it for a while here about Aaron Rodgers. Like, even with all this steep competition in the AFC, what you need to know is the Jets on this Thursday, as we get ready for the NCAA tournament, are a legit Super Bowl contender. Legit. Not pie in the sky stuff, a legit Super Bowl contender with him at quarterback.
It makes the NFL more fun.
It does. It's the biggest story in the NFL.
It's the biggest sports story in general. Again, that's why we open like that. You would think we would have been breaking down the bracket for the last 30 minutes. You would think that we would have been talking about, Edwin Diaz and the World Baseball Classic. We could have been talking about how Joel Embiid on some books is now ahead of Jokic as the shortest odds for MVP. These are all really big stories. The New York Jets are literally the number one story in sports, and it's because of Aaron Rodgers.
No doubt. And do you know what it's going to be like then when training camps open up, when mini camp opens up, and Rodgers is down in Florham Park, New Jersey? Like, it is going to be utterly and completely insane, the amount of focus and work and grind. Thanks a lot for the call. And good luck to your Lions. And you should be ecstatic about where that team is going right now. But yeah, I think for a lot of people in the NFC, they're ecstatic once that comes down, that Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet, that he's out of the NFC, and really kind of, opens everything up with the way the Philadelphia Eagles are getting ravaged now. They were able to work their wonders. Give credit to Howie Roseman last night, because if you didn't stay up late, Darius Slay is back with the Philadelphia Eagles after they reworked a new deal. So both corners, James Bradbury and Darius Slay, are going to be back in the defensive backfield for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a positive sign. But you look at the complexion of the rest of the NFC, it's not a lot of confidence when you look at the quarterback play. There's not really all that many good quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah. Hey, Jay Cabassa, your 49ers, you want to make that the lead story here? What do we want to talk about, man?
No.
Well, Jay, is that an upside down Mets?
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling today.
Yeah, I understand that.
Wait, how did you get that made?
Here you go. I'll take off my hat.
But baby Jay just said that hat is stupid.
I actually think that's kind of cool.
I think that's awesome.
Whatever.
I think that's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Leave it to Baby Jay just to hate on you and Wally all the time.
That's it.
So I wanted to say this. We have to stop with this narrative of Aaron is okay or very good. I know that's been coming around in the chat, but
I wanted to just kind of, from it being a Niners fan, I've always, I'm the one who always wanted Rodgers, even when he was supposed to be drafted by the Niners. We missed out on that. I've always admired his game. Yes, he can be a jerk, but when you look at his numbers, when you look at what Green Bay has had talent wise, there's a lot of years where Green Bay could have gotten that extra piece and didn't do that. um, it still didn't deter from the great numbers that he puts. You can't say he's very good after winning back-to-back MVPs. Um, you have to say he's great. He's a top 5 QB in the league. You can argue that he's probably top 3, behind Mahomes and Burrow. Um,
Josh
and
Allen.
that's right now. Josh Allen, yeah, but the
Yeah. But
longevity.
I see what you mean, though. Yes.
The point
The
is, like,
longevity.
it would surprise nobody if Aaron Rodgers next year wins an MVP.
Right, and it would surprise no one if Garrett Wilson ends up going for 1,400 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns.
Right. If I came on the airwaves this morning and said I think Daniel Jones will be the MVP of the league, Keith will be like, "What were you drinking this morning?"
Yeah,
like he's got
I'd
literally
be upset with you.
Right, exactly. But if I said, Keith, I think Aaron Rodgers can win the MVP next year, you're like, yeah, that's within reason.
Believable.
There's a pathway for him to go out there and do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy for the Jets. I hate them, but I'm happy for them.
Yes.
I think it is good for football. It's good for the NFL. And yes, they're probably gonna build a statue for the guy, and especially if he wins. So what can you say?
Jay, you're the best, buddy. We appreciate it, man.
All right,
all right. Don't take any guff from Baby J and from Wally. All right.
Oh, of course, that comes along with the territory. Let's welcome aboard right now Corey Parson, the fantasy exec. Corey's great. We know him. We love him. You see him all the time here on Bettor Sports Network. And he joins us now. A lot to get into with Corey. Obviously, Rodgers, the Jets, NCAA tournament, WBC. Good morning, Corey. How you doing?
Yo, what's going on? How y'all guys doing? Glad to be back chopping it up. Got a chance to chill with Moose, got a chance to chill with Keith. So now with 3 of us all coming together on this high holy day in sports, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to win the MVP next year. I think that's a bit of a stretch right there, but it's good to see.
Corey, let me ask.
It's good to see optimism from the New York Jet fan.
Both of us. Who do you like more, Keith?
I'm not going to get into that. My name is Bettor, and I'm not in it.
Who have you known longer?
I've known. Well, I met Moose years ago. Probably
WFAN.
At WFAN, yeah. So yeah.
Wow, that's swing and a miss by me. All right. Moose wins. And you know what? He starts that way. I was going to have nothing but support for Moose. And I thought his Aaron Rodgers point, like, listen, I wouldn't bet on Aaron Rodgers to win the MVP, but he's right. If you start listing players that you wouldn't be surprised if they were an MVP at the end of the year, Rodgers would be on that list. That wouldn't shock you if he was MVP. If Rodgers goes for 4,400 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, he's going to be in the conversation if the Jets win 11 games.
Will the Jets win the division, though?
I think the Jets can. Can they win 11 games, the Jets? They won 7 last year. Can they win 11 games?
Yeah, they can. Yeah. If they go 10-7 next year and Rodgers is healthy, it's a massive disappointment.
Yeah. See, I'm looking at it as a team that's a 7-8 seed in the AFC that could very well still miss the playoffs. It's just the AFC is just so loaded. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Corey, they won, like, we've all watched the Jets all season long. And I know every year's not one and the same, and they bring other issues, right? But the quarterback play was so atrociously bad for the Jets. Outside of the
you started one game for the Jets last year, quarterback. I don't know if you remember that.
Outside of the Mike White game against the Chicago Bears, outside of that, the quarterback play was atrocious for the Jets all season long. Like, Zach Wilson was dreadful. Flacco was awful, and they still won 7 games. Now, listen, you could say, well, it's not going to work out that way. The defense is not going to be nearly as good. Breece Hall, everyone's counting on Breece Hall. He tore his ACL week 9 last year. Like, when exactly? And I know everyone tells you they're ahead of schedule, but we've seen outside of Adrian Peterson, usually it takes more than a year to fully come back from a torn ACL, even though age is on his side because he's an extremely young running back. I think Aaron Rodgers, with Maybe I'm putting too much confidence in him. Maybe I am. I think Aaron Rodgers, though, is going to be extremely good next year for the Jets. I'd be surprised.
Plus 180 to win the AFC East. Interesting. Let's see what the Buffalo Bills do. But I think you definitely optimism is deserved and warranted because of Aaron Rodgers and what you already showed last year. But I just worry about it just being a quarterback away.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating to see, Corey. It really will. I mean, I think the whole Rodgers stuff is going to be great, and that's kind of dominated the conversation to the start here. What's your take, Corey, on the WBC? Because we haven't gotten much into it, but what we saw last night with Edwin Diaz after Puerto Rico's victory over the Dominican Republic, celebrating, suffering a right knee injury. Guys were in tears on the field, had to be carried off into I believe a wheelchair, and then
they ended up putting him in a wheelchair. Yep.
Yeah, and then X-rays, further imaging today. The Mets announced late last night. We don't know the severity of the knee injury, but obviously looked awful from what we saw last night on the field.
Yeah, no, that's a very unfortunate thing to I mean, I'm just Mets, but it's a very unfortunate thing to go down, especially out there celebrating on the field at the Baseball Olympics. So listen, it is what it is. You're going to have these exhibitions, these type of tournaments and stuff like that. He could have got hurt playing in the spring training game, but at least he'd been playing and not celebrating. But listen, that's kind of what the Baseball Olympics is. It's like, where you really see enthusiasm for the game, much like you really don't see in the majors. I think they do it right. I'm a fan of the tournament. But with that being said, injuries is something tough, and it makes you if you're a Met fan, it puts you back in that mindset of here we go again.
We are definitely in that mode for the New York Mets as a here we go again. The WBC in general, and I know that I remember, I guess it was like 2 weeks ago that you and I were working together, and you had said like you were just ramping up your baseball stuff at that point. Were you into the WBC? Have you been paying attention? For me, and I told Moose this, and I know I'm going long-winded here. This is the one time of year that I don't have to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, right, for work. So I haven't been staying up late to watch the games. I try to get to sleep a little bit earlier because it's the 1 month I actually can sleep a little bit. Have you been paying attention?
I've been getting ready for the NCAA tournament, to be honest with you, so not too much on it. But here's the thing about it is, it's like people always talk about the lack of interest in Major League Baseball. There's no lack of interest in the WBC. So you see what I'm saying? It's like it's something that's not clicking as far as
Is it the pride of your nation? Maybe
I think that plays, especially with the Latin countries. You know what I'm saying? I think the pride of your nation, the pride of the players. You know what I'm saying? Playing for their native land. It seems like, I don't know. It just seems like it's a more entertaining product than watching 162 games of, of K, Michael K and them cats. And I like Michael K. I'm a Michael K guy, but you just night after night after night after night, it's just like, can we get to October already? And maybe this is being a tournament in a short size, you know what I'm saying? But I think they need to learn something from this format that can bring some more energy into the sport.
Oh. That's why we spice it up and get Justin Shackle in there filling in for Kay every once in a while. Love my guy, Justin.
Yes, shout out to Justin.
Do you think that last one on the WBC, do you think with this event, what we saw last night leaves such a bitter taste that teams will not allow star players to play and compete in the WBC?
I think eventually, I think that's really going to be something you could start seeing that pop up in contracts more. You know what I'm saying? So it's unfair. You hate to go about it that way, but I do think, when you got the New York Mets paying you this amount of money, we can't have you up there, celebrating and now you're not going to give us possibly nothing this year.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the problems too is the timing, right? And I believe that with World Baseball Classic going before the season, the thought is that it almost helps you get ramped up for a season. This essentially, if Edwin Diaz is gone for the year, now the Mets still have an amazing team and they can find other avenues to go, but you're losing arguably the best closer in baseball if he's gone for the year. This is going to be a really tough pill to swallow for the New York Mets, and they're going to sit there going, I wonder if we shouldn't have let our guys play in this.
Yeah, and that's going to be unfortunate, but At least the fan base is used to it.
Yeah, that is true. Unfortunately, you're right
Sorry.
about that.
Sorry.
All right, Corey, let's start. Get into a little NCAA tournament conversation. I love it. You know, you saw a couple good games on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
You saw a couple
Brackets
of
and
terrible
brackets.
games
Nothing
on
last
Wednesday
night. Yeah.
out there in Dayton. Right now, Corey. So, who's your Final Four? Who do you like to? Before we get into individual matchups,
Oh,
and
you're not even warming them up. You're not giving them an appetizer
Well, let's
or
hop right.
nothing.
Let's hop right into it.
Wow, Moose is just like, all
yeah,
right,
well,
let's
I'm
go
curious.
to the
Who do you
main
like? Who do you have
course.
coming? Who do you like in your Final Four? Who do
I
you
got
have winning the
I
national
got
championship?
Houston, Gonzaga, Baylor, and Kentucky. And Kentucky is the team that I feel pretty excited about. You remember a couple of years ago when Virginia won? They were coming the year before. They lost in that 116 match at the UMBC. And I think this tournament right here, because of Kentucky, that Kentucky lost to St. Peter's last year, that was the worst loss in Kentucky basketball history. And, you know, they had some struggles to start the season. Then they kind of locked in. That SEC conference is very tough, but they locked in. They got some good road victories. And I think that Kentucky remembers what happened last year. You got some players from that team still here, obviously Coach Cal. And I think Kentucky is primed to make a deep run and cut down the nets at Madison Square Garden.
Wait, so you have Kentucky as your champ?
Well, I got him winning the East region. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
You have Kentucky in the Final Four, and who do you have? You have Houston winning the national championship?
I got Houston, the Cougars winning the national championship.
Okay.
I like Calvin Sampson's team. Then they've been pound for pound the best team in college basketball this year. So I'm going with Houston. Listen, here's a game. You got in that East bracket at Madison Square Garden next weekend, you can have Michigan State versus Kentucky. That's a made for Madison Square Garden game right there. And that bracket with Houston, the Miami-Indiana game that would probably be on Sunday is going to be very interesting. That's a team that could possibly make a run. But Miami, with one of their players being down, at least injured, wait to see what happens. But I like the Cougars to win the national championship.
I knew you were going to pick Houston. You told me that 2 weeks ago that Houston was going to be a team. I want to double back, though, to Baylor. Baylor is one of those odd teams where they outscore you. They play zero defense. Is there any fear in your mind about having Baylor go so far, or is that based off of the region that they're in?
The next round matchup versus Creighton is going to be tough. Creighton is a team that came into the season. A lot of people were on Creighton. They had some injuries. They looked like they were starting to get it together, had an early exit from the Big East tournament. But I think that Creighton is going to be an interesting matchup. But I think Baylor playing in that Big 12 and being battle-tested is going to be enough to get them to the next round. And look, it's really the matchup versus Alabama on the horizon for Baylor. But Alabama starts off this process in Birmingham. Every round they go. So when they leave Birmingham next weekend, Brandon Miller situation is going to be a thing. And if they get to the Final Four, it's really going to be a thing. It's going to be international news if they get to the Final Four in the NCAA championship. So as the deeper Bama goes, the more the distraction about the incident that took place comes into play. Eventually, I think it cripples them. I think Baylor knocks them out the tournament.
You think Baylor knocks them out in the tournament? All right. What's your best play today when you're looking at all the matchups?
You know, I think kind of with everybody else, I hate being so chalky. But, you know, you have everybody today is on College of Charleston. College of Charleston COC is a pretty good team. They cracked the top 25, spent a couple of weeks in the top 25 this past season. Veteran bunch. Normally what you see with a lot of these teams that go on a run is these guys have played together for a number of years now. They're a veteran bunch. They go out there. They score a lot of points. So I look at College of Charleston. Also tonight, interesting, it's some sharp money hitting Colgate. And that 215
I've seen
matchup.
that.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people hopping on Colgate. I don't know if they think they're playing them to win the game, but they're playing them at plus 13.5, pretty heavy. Right now, there's 700 on the money line. You might as well put a couple dollars on that since it's overwhelming amount of sharp money, respected money coming in on Colgate. And obviously, Furman seeing some action as well. But I think I would probably go the other way and roll with Virginia on that one. Yep. And then that early start, I probably would fade the public and go with the Terps versus West Virginia.
There was a FanDuel boost I saw for today's games that was UCLA, Houston, Texas, and who was the other team that was involved in that one? Hold on. And Alabama.
Interesting.
All
You know
four
what
of
that
those
means?
teams to
One
win
of
by
those-
11 or more.
To win by 11 or more. I thought you was gonna bet all of those. Because normally when you see the FanDuel boost, if it was just like these 4 teams to win,
Yeah.
that's a giveaway. One of those
Smooth
teams
loser.
want to lose. Yeah.
Yeah, it was to win by 11 or more, I think. Those are the ones. I could
So
double
yeah,
check
so
that.
yeah, if you're on that 13.5 with Colgate as the respected money, I probably would stay away from that because that only gives you a little bit of wiggle room.
Yep.
Everybody else should be able to have a cakewalk in their first round matchups.
What about tomorrow, Corey?
Tomorrow is we get even more interesting. Let me flip the screen over here.
Hold on, while you're doing that, let me just I got the boost for everybody just in case people are interested in it. So it's plus 200 up from plus 115. It's Kansas, Alabama, Houston, and UCLA, all of them to win by 11 or more points.
Kansas, Alabama, Houston, and UCLA all to win by 11 or more.
Feels good, right?
It does feel good.
Almost too good.
What are they giving you that for? What odds?
Just 2-to-1 odds. It's nothing special.
At 2-to-1 odds, I would take I'll take a crack at it at 2-to-1.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah,
pretty good. Wait, it's Kansas, Bama, UCLA, and Houston?
Kansas, Bama, Houston, and UCLA. So yeah. I honestly think that you're going to be sweating out the UCLA one come the nighttime.
That would be the one I'd be concerned.
Yeah, right? I think we're going to be it's going to be 12:30 a.m. Eastern time, and UCLA is going to be up by like 10, 11, or 12.
Yeah,
and you're going to be worrying.
No, that could be the case. A lot of people not in on UCLA this tournament run right here. They've been there and played well the past couple of years. Kind of got that same bunch coming back. Rotating 2 and adding some new pieces as well. Possible matchup of that classic from a couple years ago versus Gonzaga. We can get that next weekend. I think that's where the Bruins season ends.
Yeah, you can go all the way back to crying Adam Morrison as well when he was weeping on the court after losing to the UCLA Bruins. We could. I'm just worried about the loss of Clark for the Bruins. The other thing, Corey, that and I love the NCAA tournament, and I don't know if you lean into or lean against. It seems like, first off, there's a lot of love for UConn. I feel like everybody and their mother is picking UConn. I've seen a little bit more love as of late, and Keith talked me into Duke in the East, right? So there's a little bit more love. I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that Duke should have been maybe not a 5, but a 4, maybe a 3 with the way they closed out the season and knock on the ACC. Everybody and their mother thinks Alabama can't lose in that region. And then there's so many people that love Texas to come out of their region. Where do you go in terms of, do you fade, those, or do you lean into, everyone when they're filling out brackets, how much public love there is for certain teams?
I think you got to kind of pay attention to it and listen, you got to kind of go on your own journey through this NCAA tournament. If you think you can just come in and fill out a bracket and boom, you lit, it's going to be trouble. You got to kind of know the story of what's going on. Texas is a very good team, and they've played very well this year. Now, can they get knocked off? Even through their change of head coach mid-season, they haven't really missed a beat. Playing in that Big 12, winning that Big 12 conference championship over Kansas. But still at times you saw this year when Texas had some adversity, and that adversity struck if they were not at home, they can be had. Ultimately, I think Houston is the team that knocks them out, for a trip to Houston. So, and then they're gonna have a tough matchup on Sunday with Tech. If Texas A&M wins, Texas A&M is going to give them some hell to pay as well. They played very good in the SEC this year. Texas A&M is probably a misseeded team too. So I'm not total fade of Texas. I just think Houston's a little bit better than them.
Who is a team that you have been on most of the year, and because of their draw, you're a little bit leery of?
I'm worried about the Hurricanes. I like Jim Laranaga's bunch a lot. I thought that they could have been a Final Four bunch, but now you see they're in that same region with Houston up top. Now they've also had that injury. I can't think of the young man's name right now, but he's a 14-10 guy. You lose that. Now he's still questionable. There's a chance he can get out there. We'll see how that plays out tomorrow. But if he's not 100%, you even look at some of Miami's odds to make the Sweet 16, and then you're getting plus money on that. So that lets me know that that odds makers are down on the Hurricanes right now too. potential second round. Listen, getting past this matchup with Drake could
That's
be
not an easy
problematic
one.
in a
Yeah.
5-12 matchup. And then you get past that, and you're looking at the Indiana Hoosiers possibly in the next round. And that's going to be a tough matchup as well. They have one of the best players in the country, too. So I think I've been on Larry Nager's bunch all year. I'm starting to pull back a little bit now as, you see the draw.
All right. So overall, I mentioned as far as Friday goes. Today you mentioned you're fading the public. You like the first game off the board. You're taking Maryland, even though there's a lot of love for West Virginia.
Yep.
What about the Friday action, Corey?
When you look at some of the things going on tomorrow, Michigan State early. Love Michigan State. I think Michigan State can make a run in this tournament. I actually like Kennesaw State too as well to cover the number tomorrow. Pittsburgh is a team I think is getting ready for a Sweet 16 run. And that's really taking an early look. That's kind of really it that I see so far. Oh, Memphis as well. I think this Memphis team is getting hot at the right time. Memphis was really doing this Penny Hardaway thing with these big recruits. And you would see in the tournament how athletic and NBA ready they was. Memphis kind of flying under the radar this year. Had that big win versus Houston to win the American. But Memphis can beat Purdue, and Memphis can beat Duke. So you could see Memphis going to run this tournament. But the thing with like Penny Hardaway, great recruiter, he's becoming a better coach now. So that's what you like to see from the Memphis Tigers.
Who do we have yesterday, Moose, that said Memphis is going to win the title?
Win the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's people that got Memphis in their Final Four. It's interesting. Memphis
wasn't it Barnett's Pat Mayo?
Oh, yeah. Pat Mayo had Memphis as the national champion. Yes.
How about that? Memphis is good. I think Larry Brown might be on that staff. I don't know how he connects with today's athlete, but you know what I'm saying. How old is Larry Brown now? My goodness.
I'm going to guess 78.
Yes, I think he is 78. Yes.
Am I right?
I think he's there. He's like 77, 78, 79. He might even be 80. I don't know.
Shout out to Larry Brown. Larry Brown been around. Coached a lot of basketball.
Corey, you're awesome. I want to ask you one on the NBA before we go. What do you make of in the MVP race? The tightening of the MVP race between Jokic and Embiid.
Now, at first, right, I don't want to be controversial, but I was like, is this all of this Kendrick Perkins stuff starting to creep into the voters' minds? And like we've always talked about how there is it seems to be an aspect of the NBA, even with All-Star Weekend, with him being the last starter selected or next to last starter selected. It seems to be like people, like the stat heads, a center averaging a triple-double is great. But it seems like a lot of people don't respect Jokic. Is that because he plays in Denver and it's not a prime NBA market? But that's what my thinking was. Maybe all this media talk about Jokic winning this thing 3 years in a row is starting to bubble up. But then last night, I watched the 76ers and the Cavaliers. And I'm like, yeah, this is probably more about the way that Joel Embiid is playing right now. And the fact that the Nuggets are slumping. I'm not mistaken, Denver may be a game ahead of Philadelphia in the standings. So this is why Embiid is starting to come alive. I think it's a mixture of all of this, but I would go more so after seeing what I saw last night of his play on the court. Even though he was bailed out last night, he really should have had his sixth foul and got put out the game. With that being said, Embiid, throughout this Jokic run, Embiid's been the second best player in the league.
Embiid is leading the NBA in scoring. I think he's 5th in blocks per game. He's 9th in rebounds per game. Jokic is averaging a triple-double, yes. But I come to this, and maybe this is just too simplistic to think. One, I do think that Jokic is the MVP as we sit here this minute. Doesn't mean that he can't get caught. But, Corey, if I told you to do a draft right now, and you could pick any NBA players that are currently in the league, how late is Jokic taken?
It really depends on who you got drafting, right?
No, you. Corey Parson.
Me?
Corey Parson is drafting an NBA team right now. How long do we have to wait before you would consider Jokic? So Giannis is 1, right?
I probably would go somewhere along the lines of Giannis at 1.
To win this year, to win 1 year, by the way, we're not thinking about building a franchise. So
win
like
1
it's
year,
not it's not like, you know,
it's gonna
something
be-
you're like, oh, I need
it's
Anthony
gonna be
Edwards.
like Giannis,
Yeah.
Tatum. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go for the guys that'll get it done. He would probably be a top 5 pick of mine, Jokic.
Would he? He'd be ahead of Curry.
No, he wouldn't be ahead of Curry.
He'd be ahead of Durant.
Yeah, I'd put him ahead of Kevin Durant because Kevin
He'd be
Durant.
ahead of Luka.
No, I would not put him ahead of Luka.
Would he be ahead of LeBron?
He would be ahead of LeBron.
For 1 year, you take Jokic to win over LeBron, huh?
Yeah, I would. I would because I'm looking at the age. You know what I'm saying?
Would he be over Lillard?
Man, that's a tough call right there. When it comes to basketball, I'm gonna take the big man over the little man.
Okay. But even this, like, because and you are amazing with hoops. The fact that we were able to do that, where like you right away thought Jokic top 5, and then like you start talking about it, you're like, I don't know.
Another thing that's interesting too is when you look at the MVP candidates, you know, the 2 best U.S. born players in basketball right now are Jason Tatum and John Morant.
Really?
Yeah. And then I maybe Dame. Yeah. But yeah.
Dame's right there.
Yeah.
Dame gets lost in the sauce because he's in Portland.
I mean, you just look at you pull up, you know, MVP race. It's Jokic, Embiid, Giannis. You know what I'm saying? Luka. That's what the NBA is right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then you have to go down a while before there's a U.S. Not saying it's a problem. I don't want nobody, you know what I'm saying, in my inbox.
No one's taking it that way.
Yeah. I'm not trying. I got kids. I can't be canceled. But what I'm saying is, you know what I mean? Like, you're not just canceling me, but I'm just saying, you know, you never know how these things play a role in the way people think. You know, if at one point you would not even consider that it would be that the top 4 or 5 MVP candidates in the NBA would not be American-born players.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for the league. Very global. That's a good thing.
And I think, you know, back to the Embiid Jokic conversation, I do think it's more a case of the way that Embiid is playing, and it's just a shame that Kendrick Perkins put that out into the air.
Yeah,
because that's also, if Embiid ends up winning the MVP, Corey, that's going to also be part of the. That's also, instead of crediting Embiid for closing out the season strong, it's a shame that's going to be. Unfortunately, that's going to be part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. You know, listen, Embiid easily could have been the MVP last year. I mean, and he didn't close the season strong, and Jokic isn't closing the season strong this year. So I think I agree with Keith. As we sit here right now on this Thursday, I still think Nikola Jokic is the MVP of the league, but I'm also not blind to the fact of just the way that Embiid is playing right now for the Philadelphia 76ers, and I don't think that lead is insurmountable. I just wish the stuff that Perkins had to say on ESPN was never said, and then they walked it all back the very next day by Molly Karam, because it just puts a tone into the conversation that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was his plan going into it. You know, I found it interesting how JJ Redick came back and called him out on it. A lot of times I think that stuff is scripted, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then I really do believe a lot of those conversations are scripted. But
well, I don't know. You know, I will say this, like, kind of pull the curtain.
Was kind of
pull the curtain back. I think for video purposes, whenever you're putting together a TV show, clearly, you know, you are asked an angle, not necessarily what exactly you're going to say, but they're going to talk away and find a way of how to create natural disagreement. It's an art form. There are men and women that are very, very good at doing it, that work as producers and saying, let's look at a story. How can we look at that story differently? What's an angle we could take to where we could bring up natural conversation or natural disagreement to that story? I thought Perkins went to a level to where it didn't need to go, to me personally. And then he got called out for it by JJ Redick. And then the very next day, Molly Karam had to apologize for ESPN for what Kendrick Perkins had to say. And I think if Embiid does win it, he should not have to answer, like, that should not be part of any of the conversation. It just should be a credit to whether the way that Joel Embiid has played because he's a wonderful basketball player.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it is also Embiid is not going to take it that way because Embiid will tell you he thought he should have won it last year.
Sure.
So he's like, this is one that's been coming to me for a couple years now. If he can avoid an injury down the stretch, and it doesn't seem like Luka's going to get hot, I think I
think it's a two-person race. I think it's Embiid or
you don't put Giannis in it.
I do not.
Okay,
I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, Keith, you throw Giannis into the mix in the MVP?
I think he's clearly the third one there.
Right.
Even though I think he's the best player in the NBA, I think he's third. Yeah. Before we let you go, Corey, just want to let you know that the chat, it's buzzing, and Baby J just wants to remind you that you're still not invited to the Knicks barbecue.
I figured Baby J, but listen, I'm thinking what it might have been you, Moose, when we was here. I did mention the Knicks was going to be that surprise team in the East.
You did say that.
I did mention the Knicks would beat, and I understand that I'm not invited to participate. You know what I'm saying? But I'll be watching from afar. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
hopefully
Corey,
the garden is rocking.
When we have a Moose and Keith Nick fandom barbecue, you're always welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're always welcome.
That's true.
Hey, if the Knicks was to play the Celtics in the second round, they'd beat them.
Wow.
I don't know about that.
I think they're a tough matchup for the Celtics. I really do. If I'm the Knicks, the only team in the conference that's worrying me right now is Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I don't think they can handle Philadelphia either, by the way.
That's true.
I don't think they'd have an answer for Embiid.
I don't, as a Knicks fan, Corey, and Keith, it doesn't bother me. I'm just happy that they are. Corey, I'm happy what you said turned out to be correct, that they are a dangerous team in the East. I'm happy that they've been able to win some games, even with Brunson dealing with this foot injury. I love Josh Hart's acquisition.
Yeah.
IQ. I love the fact that the other night, against Portland, it was Deuce McBride stepping up and scoring 18 points and hitting 4 threes. Those are all good things. First off, who doesn't love Deuce McBride? But those are all positive things as a Knicks fan, and I'll take relevancy. If you give me a playoff series victory and they're able to put a scare into somebody and maybe force 6 games in the next round, I'll take it.
That's a success.
Yeah,
that's a success. I'll sign on the dotted line. Corey, you're great, man.
Before you get out of here, don't forget to pay attention. Don't forget to every now and then look over at that women's bracket because Dawn Staley and that Carolina crew is about to be undefeated national champions. I've seen them as high as a -250 favorite. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's no value anymore.
No, it's no value anymore.
I think when you and I spoke to Maria Marino, who now
it might have been around even money around that time, right?
Yeah, I think it was -105 or something like that. Yeah.
Are you
all gone?
I haven't, to be honest, for God's honest truth, I've not watched. I've seen some of the UConn women. I know the
St. John's women's basketball tonight going to knock off Purdue in the 11-11 matchup. All right, let's go, Tartamella.
Is South Carolina that dominant, Corey?
Yeah, if a UConn or Stanford in the national championship, they would probably be a 8-9 point favorite.
Wow. Okay. Corey, you're awesome, man. Enjoy the tournament. Enjoy the start today. Thanks for the time this morning, bud.
Good times.
Later, bro.
Corey Parson, fantasy exec. He's great.
1, let's go St. John's tonight. Again, we have rooting interest.
Sure.
2, I got the 2020 championship shirt on for Hofstra today, okay? And it's officially confirmed.
3?
What'd you say?
No, in 3, it was 1, 2.
Yeah. Officially confirmed.
You have abs.
You know that. I will. I mean, all you got to do is, go on the internet.
Yeah, Keith, that would look a little odd.
No.
Daddy, what are you looking at? Keith Irizarry's abs.
Yeah, that's a little awkward. You're right. The third part of this excitement is the Hofstra game is at 2 p.m. on Saturday. We're hosting Cincinnati. I will be there in attendance, me and the whole fam.
That's great. Well, you gotta put out a hype video for Better Sports Network before the game when you're there.
All right, I gotta. You know what? I'll put a reminder in my phone. I'll do something with the boys.
The boys. Yeah, you got to do something before the game, like when you're in the building.
Yeah, we're gonna be cutting it close too. Alex has soccer at 12:30. It'll be over by 1:20. And then I got to book out to Hofstra. So I'm going to get there just a tip.
Cincinnati, then is it one more win?
They got to win 2 more times, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if they beat Cincinnati, then it's 2 more wins or 1 more win.
It's one more win to get to the Final Four,
Okay.
right? Because it's the first round, the second round, the third round. It's 5 total games in the NIT.
Okay. So yeah. So they beat Cincinnati on Saturday. Then they're 1 more win away from the Final Four in the NIT.
Dude, the MAC is going to be rocking.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little. Let's take a quick timeout.
Yep.
And we'll come back. Let's talk a little WBC. We got to talk a little tournament. We're going to be talking a little football a little bit later on in this hour. Ian Wharton's going to join the program as well. It's Moose and Keith with you on a Thursday. We have to go over our Final Four picks as well. Moose and Keith with you on a Thursday right here, Bettor Sports Network.
Talk sports with Lisa Ann and Rick Kamla, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network.
Let me say something about Tiger. You know, Tiger has had to redesign his entire swing. Tiger has a difference in the length of his legs because of that horrible accident. You know, in golf, there's no like, hey, you can't walk the greens. You have to take a cart. So I assumed by day 3 on Sunday, you know, the inflammation would start. He took a couple breaks where they take care of his back a little bit, but it is fascinating watching him. So it gave me this thought, like, is he that skilled at golf? Or is this a mental thing of dedication and determination? He is so dedicated to the sport that no matter what, he's relentless to it. And the dedication and determination goes to the golf, the swing, the playing, the walking, but it goes to his overall health. The average person who doesn't stay in great shape, gets in an accident like that, goes through multiple surgeries, is not recovering and going out there to walk. And that course has some pretty steep inclines, a lot of walking. I mean, how else can you factor these athletes, you know, the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, these players that just, their whole focus is really optimal health, optimal body skills, optimal. And then what comes next is being the best at what they do.
I think you just hit on why Tiger still has that drive. I don't know this. I don't know the man. It could just be love of the game. It could be, I want to make as much money as I can while playing. Could be all this stuff. But LA, a lot of people think Tiger Woods is the GOAT of golf. And I don't understand how you can be the GOAT of golf when you are 3 majors short of Jack Nicklaus. Okay? So, like, LeBron, I don't think he cares what guys like me say anymore, right? He's past Kareem. He thinks he's the GOAT. I mean, he's 3rd on my list. He's in the debate. Many other people think he's the GOAT. He's not my GOAT. You know what I mean? So I wonder if Tiger is there, like LeBron, like, I don't care what the pundits, what the barbershops say. I'm the GOAT. I don't have to do anything more. This is all gravy. I wonder if Tiger looks at it that way.
I don't know what Tiger's mindset is in the GOAT status, but when players talk about what it's like to be at a tournament, when Tiger's playing versus when he's not, they'll tell you that they're on the greens and they can hear the roar 4 holes over, and that there is nothing that compares to the excitement of when he's present.
Bettor Sports Live, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, exclusively on Bettor Sports Network. Or listen whenever you want on the app with BSN On Demand. It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
What is Tony playing for us today?
I love that, Tony. Good job.
That's good. Well, I don't know what this is.
I don't know when I'll be back again. I don't know who is this. I don't know who sang it, to be honest with you.
I know the new one. I'm leaving, never looking back again. That's that. Remember that song? It was like the 2010s early.
Yes.
Little young kid was singing it. I don't remember his name.
Yes.
That's Elton John? Or no. Well, Work and Grind is saying leaving on a jet plane. Mary, Peter, and Paul. That work for you? Mary, Peter, and Paul.
Yes. Mary.
Oh, Tony, I see what you're doing now. Because Aaron Rodgers is hopping on a jet to be a jet. Because when you're a jet all the way.
You got that, right?
Yes. From your first cigarette to your last dying day. I don't know what's going on here.
What is going on? I have no idea.
I know we're switching to baseball. I get it.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk to Ian Wharton in a little bit too about NFL draft. Can I quickly just give you my top 7 QBs in the AFC?
Sure.
Just throw it out there. People want to react. Cool. And then we're going to switch over to WBC. So with Aaron Rodgers presumably going to be in the AFC. So I have as my list, Mahomes is 1, Burrow is 2, Allen is 3. And then this is where it gets murky, and I have no problem with how you'd want to order this. I have some variation of Herbert, Lamar, Rodgers as 4, 5, 6, and then Trevor Lawrence very, very close at number 7. That'd be my top 7 QBs in the AFC.
Wait, run that by me one more time.
Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. I think those are the top 3.
Right.
Then your next 3, some variation of Herbert, Lamar, Rodgers. I would have no problem with you putting them any which way, honestly. I might lean Herbert 4. I think I'd probably go maybe Rodgers 5, Lamar 6. I'd like to know where Lamar's actually playing before I answered that question. And then Trevor Lawrence would be 7.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm missing anybody in the AFC. Like, I'm not missing Russell Wilson. I'm not,
No. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Jackson, Rodgers, Lawrence.
Yeah. And what that's telling you is Rodgers being on your roster is giving you the 4th, 5th, or 6th best quarterback in the AFC.
Yeah, I think the high water mark would be 4.
Work and grind writes Lawrence outside the Lamar group. I just by a hair. I mean, I've only seen Trevor Lawrence do it well for 1 season. And if we're being honest, he struggled at times last year too. So I'd like to see him do it a little bit more consistently. He now has all the full complement of weapons behind him and around him. Trevor Lawrence should be fantastic this year. I put him just a hair behind.
Yes. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Listen, I think if you're a Jet fan, is that, I wouldn't bet it like you mentioned before when you look at Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, there would be a pathway for him to potentially be the MVP of the National Football League if he had a really spectacular year. That's not out of the realm of possibility. He's not just a game manager at this stage of his career. You're not going down that path. Do I think he's going to be Patrick Mahomes? No. Do I think he's going to be Burrow? I think you're looking at a top 4 at his peak, a quarterback. I think that's within, at this stage in the AFC, and that's not trying to insult them. You're looking at Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes in front of him in the AFC. But like I mentioned before, regardless of where he lands on that list, Keith, is that the Jets are a Super Bowl contender with him. Exactly. And without him, they're a disaster.
Yeah, without him, they were an awesome defense that were able to win 7 games.
You're right. Right. Exactly.
That's what they were.
Yes, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about the WBC.
Yeah.
Because you had the news last night. I haven't seen any. I was looking before to see if there's anything else that has come out as far as Edwin Diaz is concerned, but I've not seen any reporting as of late. I would imagine the game happened last night. Imaging is probably happening today. They had x-rays right after the game. Didn't look good. Maybe it's an ACL. I mean, I hope it's not a severe injury. I mean, Diaz got paid a ton of money in the offseason, had a huge bounce back season, the walk-in, narco, everything that comes along with it. I know the Mets brought in David Robertson on a 1-year deal for $8.5 million during the course of the offseason, something of that nature, to be the setup man for Edwin Diaz. Could he step in and be the closer for the team? Probably. Is he going to be as dominant as Diaz was last year? No, he is not. And it's just the worst fears realized when you watch that scene last night down in Miami. That's the worst fear. Now, you're right. It could happen. He could be walking down the street. He could be stepping out of his car. It was a celebration that turned ugly, scary, not because there were punches, just because you saw professional athletes in tears.
Yeah. I have a subtle update, by the way.
In tears last night watching it down in Miami.
Andy Martino of SNY TV said that he has been told the injury is, in quotes, bad. Martino went on to write that a couple of people that were briefed on the situation, in quotes, fear that Diaz could be lost for a significant period, perhaps the entire season. And then the bottom of the report is that the Mets may or could reveal the results of Diaz's MRI as soon as Thursday evening. So we might know something by around dinner time.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrible.
So it does appear to be knee. Because I think when I first saw it, I thought the way he dropped, I thought either he dislocated his knee or he's tore his Achilles. Like the way he dropped, I thought it was one of those two.
Yeah, it was impossible to tell. I mean, yeah, I heard people speculating the groin, the Achilles. I didn't know when everyone knows their bodies, and professional athletes know their body better than everybody else. When you see him, holding his leg the way he was, and the fact that he put little to no weight on it, and then was wheelchaired off the field. We watched this all before. You knew it was something severe. You just had no idea what it was. And, Martino's really good, and he does a great job covering the Mets and covering the Yankees for SNY, a friend of mine. And that stinks. You feel bad for the player and for the Mets organization. That is a massive hit for a guy that got, a six-figure contract during the course of the offseason.
You've alluded to it a few times over the last hour and 20 minutes, and I really would like to hear your full take on this one. So the WBC has been a total success. The ratings from all the reports I've read have been good. Actually, for like the Japanese games have been like ridiculously good. Like all the ratings have been good. Team USA is advancing. That was important. Except for Edwin Diaz, hadn't had any major injuries. Like, Freddie Freeman had to bow out from Canada, whatever, right? So just subtle things there. Where do you sit today on the future of the WBC? What do you think?
Yeah, I sit today where I think the future is in question of the WBC.
That scares me a little bit. Yeah.
Don't you? I mean,
I don't want it to be, but yeah.
I'm not trying to overreact to it. I will say this. I think the WBC, where you have huge stars playing in the WBC, I think might be a thing of the past.
Or at least maybe the next one, right?
Yeah.
Like where it's fresh in the minds.
Yeah, correct. Maybe down the line. And this type of injury, I guess, could happen, as you mentioned, at any time. I just think it leaves such a bitter taste in the mouth. And I'm not telling you that people aren't interested or it's not a great way to promote the sport. And we understand how baseball is a globally very, very popular sport, even though the popularity here in the United States has diminished over the years. It's still the third most popular behind the NFL, which is a runaway train in Major League Baseball. I think baseball fans, Keith, as we talk to one expert after another about futures, about Cy Young, MVP, baseball win totals over and under, who do you like to win this division, who do you like to win the World Series, I think for the most part the hardened baseball fan cares about what's going on in their block.
Exactly.
And not necessarily whether or not the United States or Japan or Korea or the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico win the WBC. I think they care about that their star players are going to be there, and their great players are going to be there, and it's not going to get hurt in an event that in the end they don't really care all about. They care about trying to win a World Series, and they want to celebrate that. I get the national pride aspect of it. I get it. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, it was a very, very entertaining game. The crowd was into it. As you mentioned, the ratings were fantastic. However, we were left with the aftermath of this.
Yeah.
Is that now the complexion of the Mets season has completely changed because one of the most dominant closers in Major League Baseball might be lost for the entire year.
Did their win total change? Let's see. They were, when we did this 2 days ago, why is this page not going up? What were we at? We were at Mets 94.5. Let's refresh. Hasn't changed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess you wait to see. I mean, realistically, and I'm not trying to belittle what a closer does, and a closer is crucial to a team, but they can probably plug and play for a regular season.
Yeah, they could. It just changed. But here's the deal:
it changes your complexion of your team. But I think you can plug and play for. And if you're great by the All-Star break or by the trade deadline, you find a team that is out of it and trade for a closer.
Right. I think on a lot of different levels, though. I mean, Diaz was part of the reason a year ago. I mean,
and
Diaz,
he helped build that culture.
He helped build that culture, and now you're taking him out of the equation. You're not wrong. I mean, there's enough bad teams in Major League Baseball. It's not like the Mets are not going to win games. Now, maybe they don't win 96 or 97. Maybe they win 91 or 92.
Yep.
The most important thing for the Mets is that Verlander and Scherzer are healthy come October as your 1-2 starters in the rotation. But the Mets last year had issues of getting to Diaz to close the games, and now they went in the offseason and added a few relievers and made sure they brought Diaz back as he was a free agent. And now you potentially could be losing Diaz for the entire year. And I think that's where you have to look at it right now is whatever, based on the reporting from Martino and the way that it looked last night, you have a hard time envisioning anytime soon that Edwin Diaz is going to be on the mound closing games for the Mets.
And the ultimate problem too with just the scope of the WBC, and Baby J put it in the chat and he's spot on, is that if the stars don't play in a tournament like this, most people are not watching.
Yeah,
they're not.
Sure.
Like, I mean,
For
like
sure.
the Hebert kid that got signed, and I was wrong. It wasn't Mexico, from Nicaragua or Venezuela. Sorry, got signed like right away by the Tigers. Like, that's a cool story. And it would be on social media, but it wouldn't be a massive story if there aren't any other stars playing, because no one else would be paying that much attention. And to be honest, I don't even know if scouts are going to be in attendance then. I mean, they probably would be because it's part of their job, but like it just loses a lot of the luster.
Well, you're right about that. It does. I mean, it does lose. It does take a massive hit. The stars help make it. There's no doubt about it. That's why I have concerns about the WBC continuing. I mean, that's
Nicaragua, thank you, Wally.
Yeah, I mean, I have issues thinking that, okay, where's the interest going to be? You want to see the stars participating, and maybe it's an overreaction on a Thursday after what we witnessed last night.
I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I do. I think the WBC is still going to be fine. It was a freak accident. I actually think this would be worse if it would have been a batter got hit by a ball in the head by an angry pitcher, or if it was even just a playing thing, like sliding into second, breaking your hand. I think that would be worse than this. This was just celebrating with buddies. He could have been doing this at the bar.
Yeah, he could have been. I mean, he just wasn't. He was on a baseball field.
Yeah,
and
so it leaves a little bit of a stain. Yeah.
Right, correct. So we'll see, and we'll see exactly what the imaging does reveal for Edwin Diaz as the WBC continues, and Met fans are holding their breath, holding out hope that maybe the initial reports of just how bad the knee injury is are not necessarily true. All right, who do you got in your Final Four? Because we got Ian Wharton's going to join us here, and we'll take a quick timeout. But Final Four picks for you, Keith, are whom?
March Madness. I thought you were talking about WBC. You made a quick switch. All right, so in the bracket, I like my best. Okay,
Yes.
So this would be my main bracket. I have Alabama, Duke, Texas, Kansas, Alabama, Texas, Alabama champion.
Okay, so you have Kansas
and Texas, Alabama,
Yes.
Duke. Bama wins, Texas wins, Bama is your champion. I do also have a bracket where I have Houston making the championship and beating Alabama.
Okay.
Because if Sasser could stay healthy, I do believe that can happen.
Yeah, I have the bracket. I've got Alabama, Marquette, Texas, UConn.
So we're similar. I have a UConn bracket too.
And I have Alabama and Texas.
Yep.
And I have Alabama.
What's your tiebreaker points?
162.
Dude, I'm at 168. Wow, we're right there on the Bama, Texas one.
Yes.
Huh. What is do you have a big reach in any of your brackets?
Memphis. You
have them in the Sweet 16, right?
I do. I have Memphis in the Sweet 16 losing to Duke. I have TCU knocking off Gonzaga in the second round. I have them in the Sweet 16. Probably the biggest reach. Kent State, I've beaten Indiana.
I have that in one. Actually, I have that in two. You know what I have in one bracket? The one that I have Houston winning. The more and more I did some research on it, I talked myself into this. I have Kansas State in the Final Four in one bracket.
You do?
I do. Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
And that's an interesting Final Four in that one. So that one ends up with Alabama versus Kansas State. It has Houston versus UConn, but then it still ends up with Bama versus Houston and Houston winning.
Oh, okay. Like it. There's a good one.
Just a few shots there. What was the other one? Just quickly, Austin, his Final Four is Bama, Duke, Texas, Kansas, Bama over Kansas.
Okay.
Alex has Arizona, Purdue, Houston, UConn, Arizona beating Houston in the national championship for the title.
Oh,
Yep. And that one, as much as I was like, there's no way that's happening, he picked Kansas to win last year, Alex, and won a pool because of it. And I didn't believe him last year either. So maybe we should just always go with the 8-year-old.
and he has Arizona.
He has Arizona over Purdue, Houston over UConn, Arizona over Houston.
You know what? Maybe I'll enter another one and put Arizona in.
And then the best bracket out there. All right. I labeled it as Joe Mama.
That's Joe Mama. Okay.
Jody's bracket. There's like this big family one in town. She didn't want to do it. She got talked into it because some of the other moms were doing it. She has, this is a really good Final Four. She has Alabama versus Duke,
Okay.
Houston versus Kansas, and then Alabama over Houston. And it hurt her heart to pick Texas to beat Penn State in the second round.
But she did it.
She did, yeah.
I like that final. That's a good Final Four.
I'm rooting for Jody to win. I'm rooting for Jody or Alex. I know I'm supposed to root for like myself. Nah, I'm good. Austin's my other kid, but I feel like he's won things before. I'm going for the underdog. You know what? I'm rooting for officially. This is my favorite bracket right here. I'm rooting for Jody.
There you go. Very nice. I like that. I love the tournament.
Do your boys do brackets or no?
They did not. No, we're in full-fledged hockey drama and tryouts. That's what we're into. Right?
Do we know the answers on all your hockey stuff?
No, not yet. No. When I know, you'll know.
Okay. Or are we like, or is there worry going on right now?
A little bit.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah.
That's the worst. As a parent, I hate that.
Yeah.
That feeling that you just like, I want my kid to be happy and I want my kid to get all the success that he's putting into it.
Yes.
And you're like waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a little concerned, but we'll figure it out.
You want me to make a phone call?
No, we're all good.
You
No,
sure?
not that you don't have influence. I'm not trying to knock you.
I'll make for my nephews, I'll make a call.
I appreciate. Thank you very much, Keith. You're the best, brother. I appreciate it. We'll come back. We'll talk a little NFL. Ian Wharton will join us next. It's Moose and Keith with you on a Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody, right here, Better Sports Network.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Vladdy swings at the first pitch and lines it into right center.
How did a guy who was being selected in the first round pretty well everywhere last year, he proceeded to lose 33 runs, to lose 16 homers, to lose 14 RBIs, and to lose 37 points in batting average. Oh, and 184 points in OPS. He went down everywhere. How does that guy, Vlad Jr., still register as the #1 fantasy first baseman? Ahead of Paul Goldschmidt, who won the MVP last season. Ahead of Mr. Freddie Freeman, who does the same thing every year, which is hit .315 with 25 homers and 100 ribbies. Ray, it's like Vlad Guerrero Jr. had nothing to worry about. It's like they thought they were getting him and his dad, as you can see there on the photo. You get both of them when you draft him at #1. I'm just surprised, and it was not a bad season, but Ray, it was such a disappointment compared to what he posted in 2000.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. Vladimir Guerrero, in 3 of the 4 years, he's been average to good. He had one spectacular season. And we keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. The positives are the lineage, positives are the skill set, positives are the StatCast data, which everything's like top 5%, murders the baseball. The negatives are he has not hit 275 in 3 or 4 years. We keep talking about this too. He does not hit the ball in the air. It's remarkable, his ability to hit 30-plus home runs, given that he never gets the ball in the air. His ground ball rate last year was 52%.
Well, and we're asking the question, how is he still #1 at first? But what catches me even more so, Ray, is the overall. I mean, he's a first-round pick overall, and I don't think he has any business in the first round. I look at his profile, and there are so many guys going behind Vlad that just have business in the first round that deserve to be there. Freeman, Machado, Bichette, Rafael Devers, I think maybe Pete Alonso. You put Austin Riley ahead of him. If he gets 310, 30, 190, he's a first rounder.
I think the play with Vlad is the batting average. Because he hits the ball monstrously hard, I could see him hitting 320.
Can you hit 320 with a 52% ground ball rate?
You can, but it helps if you're athletic and fast. And he's
Yeah, exactly. And I get it. His hit tool's strong, Ray, and he's good. It's funny his ground ball percentage is that high because on the occasions when I get to watch Blue Jays baseball, I don't see it. I see him hit the ball. And it's not really grounders. I'm surprised the number is that high. It feels like he stings the baseball, but I guess there's just no lift overall in his game.
It's just a little tweak to his swing that could really lead to that growth back toward where he was in the home run column. And I think people, he's done it. This is not hypothetical. He did it 2 years ago and he's still just 23.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team where you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network. It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
Rappers are monkey flipping with the funky rhythm. I be kicking, musician, inflicting composition.
You got it? Who is it?
Nas.
There you go.
Well, Tony gave it to me. Nas. New York State of
Ian
Mind.
was about to hang up the phone and be like, "Yo, if Moose doesn't know Nas, no, thank you. I'm not even. I can't do this." Ian has seen Nas in concert. I think 6 times. You said, right, Ian? 6.
That was on the low end, yeah.
Low, yeah. There you go.
What's going on, Ian? Good morning, brother. How are you?
Moose is like,
Morning,
can we move to
guys.
football, please?
No. What's going on? Happy Thursday. Have you filled out a bracket, Ian?
I have, and it was really just blind guessing. I'm here in Houston, so of course I had to go with the Cougs.
That works.
Yeah, and I'm a sucker for storylines too. I know it's Jim Nance. He went to U of H. So I'm kind of pulling for that type of narrative in this one. But other than that, I love watching the upsets. I love having a good time with it. I'll have some bets on it, but even if I don't know what I'm doing, I got to have some action on it.
And isn't that why it's fun too, right? Like I was just saying before we went to the break, in one of the brackets I was in last year, at the time, my 7-year-old son beat everybody, adults, kids, everybody, because he thought Kansas had a chance, is what he said. So
Amazing.
he had them run the gamut, and he literally won money. Am I allowed to say that he won money? Yeah, he won money. Whatever.
Sure. Why not?
Start the
That's
kids off
awesome.
young gambling. It makes sense.
Well, it's just such a great event. I mean, it just is. It's amazing. I mean, I think it's awesome. Everyone gets into it. The tournament, it's almost as perfect event as it possibly can be. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So everyone gets into it, and we appreciate you copping on with us and talk a little bit about the NFL. You're NFL draft director at Pro Football Network. Let's start here. Rodgers and the Jets. Just kind of a broad look. What do you think Rodgers is at this stage? And Keith had a list of 7 quarterbacks in the AFC. He put them anywhere from 4th through 6th, behind obviously the big 3 of Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen. And at some point he's going to end up a Jet. Where do you put, the impact on the Jets, and where do you put them in terms of the pantheon of AFC quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think at this point, it's going to be interesting to see what version of Rodgers we get. And some of that's out of his control, because some of that is, how's Nathaniel Hackett going to use him? Because when Hackett was in Green Bay, they were a lot more layered with their throwing attempts, the depth of target. I thought that offense was a little bit more balanced. Last year, as bad as Hackett was in Denver, that Green Bay offense didn't work the same. They were taking a lot of deep shots. Rodgers was second in the league in deep attempts. And so you look at some of his numbers and why they dipped. That might be part of it. His receivers were worse. They were banged up. He didn't really have a great cast of playmakers till the end of the season when Christian Watson really emerged. The Jets aren't going to have that same issue. They've got supercharged playmakers. If Hackett can kind of do a better job of balancing, I think, those intermediate and deep throws more than what we saw last year in Green Bay, I think he can still be maybe not elite, because he is almost 40. I mean, I think that is a big thing here, is that he's not probably going to be that top end Rodgers. But if you can probably get him, maybe not in a down year, but somewhere between that MVP level and what we saw last year, I think he's still a very, very good player. And so I do think that he makes the Jets at least a very serious contender to get deep into the playoffs. Whether they advance beyond that, it's really, you're splitting margins there. I mean, Cincinnati's so good, and they just got a heck of a lot better. Kansas City's gotten better. Buffalo, they get Von Miller back, so they don't really need to do a whole lot this offseason to get better besides that. So I just think the competition is so thick. But the Jets will put themselves at least in the mix to compete with those guys.
From a film study standpoint, then, which is something that you do so well, what are the Packers now with Jordan Love?
They're interesting. I'm not a huge Love guy. I thought that his junior tape at Utah State was more encouraging than his last year. His last year, he really regressed in a lot of ways. And sometimes that's not on the player. Sometimes that's the surrounding cast. We've seen that with Will Levis. We saw that with Josh Allen. But Love was never really an accuracy guy. He was more of a chunk play guy. He was going to make up for some of his deficiencies with creating big plays. We haven't really seen a lot of him in Green Bay to really know what he's going to be. I think this is going to be a tough year for him. There's a lot of pressure on him to perform. And obviously that can be a good thing too. Some guys make or break in that situation. There's not a lot of film on him. So the good news is he can probably catch defenses off guard. It's really a terrible job by the Packers setting themselves up to either, fail or to have to extend this guy, for several years at, Geno Smith type of money. So I think that they've done a really poor job handling this Rodgers stuff. But Love he's an interesting physical prospect. I just don't know. I don't know how anyone can have confidence in him that from like a processing standpoint, you really don't get better on the bench. And that wasn't the strength of his in college.
When you look at, the impacts, what about Carr in New Orleans, Garoppolo in Vegas?
I like Carr in New Orleans. I think that's something that for them made sense. They were in on Deshaun Watson last year. They don't want to ever tear down. It seems like they're just totally against it. And their team is probably too good to totally tank. They're not going to get a top 5 pick just from being a bad team. Their defense is stacked. Offensively, they've done a really nice job revamping the offense. I don't know if Alvin Kamara is going to be there next year with his legal status, but we'll have to kind of see on that. But I like the pickup of Jamal Williams. I think they have a balanced team. They're going to be competitive. That NFC South is really bad. It could be the difference between them being on the verge of making the playoffs last year to easily winning the division this year. Like Carr's decent. He's not bad and he's not really, really good, but he's probably not what the numbers say that he was last year. He had some rough games last year, but I think that some of that was also on Vegas too. I think Josh McDaniels is just, and we've kind of seen it throughout this offseason. He's just not that guy. And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt until we couldn't anymore. And like you see some of the moves he's made this offseason, it's like, I just don't think this is the guy to be a great head coach. And so kind of segueing that into the Raiders, it makes no sense to jump from Carr to Garoppolo. Garoppolo, he's not durable. And I like Garoppolo, but he's not durable. He is accurate, but he has very severe limitations when it comes to making plays outside of structure, making those big plays. Unless if they're layups, he's really not going to make it happen. And at least Carr, at least he was durable. So I think they kind of just made a sideways move, except for they got less durable at quarterback. Now I think they almost have to take a quarterback in the draft, which might cost them even more to trade up to make it happen. So it's just a really tough look for them. I don't know why they didn't get involved more with Rodgers. I think they would make sense as a team. For me, they should have looked into Lamar Jackson. That would have made a lot more sense to go all out for Jackson. But to just make a sideways move to maybe save like $2 million in guaranteed money a year just doesn't make sense.
Speaking of quarterbacks in the draft, so the Panthers now have the number 1. They gave up a lot to get it. Is there a clear number 1? Because that was the thing that had me scratching my head here about trading up to get number 1. I mean, you know better than me. Is there a clear number 1?
So because they're not really good prospects. I think there's not that definition because everyone's so different. Bryce Young is really good at improvising and being a playmaker, but he's not necessarily great at being a traditional quarterback. CJ Stroud's a great traditional quarterback. Tremendous playmaker. You don't really skip from down to down with the consistency. And so I think because they're also diametrically different, it's really hard to compare them. I think Stroud and Richardson are worthy of the number 1 pick. I think they're both very, very good talents. Some of that's going to come down to coaching. Some of that's going to what direction you want to take it. If you want a guy who be your guy, I'm not super high on Bryce Young. I think that there are a lot of things against him, and I don't know. I can't bet on those things personally. Like for him to be able to overcome, physical limitations and those types of things, especially like the stakes are so high right now at quarterback in the NFL. And so for me, I think they're in a good position as long as they pick from Stroud or Richardson. Richardson's obviously much more boom or bust, but I do think that it's a move you can make, for me, confidently, that as long as you're taking one of those two guys, you're going to get a good player.
Ian Richardson, do you think he ends up being more bust or more boom?
I'm banking on boom, but I do think it's a lot more like the Josh Allen situation, where if Josh Allen goes to Cleveland in 2018, I don't know that he's who he is now. And I think Richardson's going to be very much the same, where you're going to have to give him 2 years to say, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to look pretty rough at times, but we've got your back through it. I think if you give him that, where we've seen him do some really good work with some quarterbacks, but there's no doubt about it. And the Colts totally imploded without him last year. So I think there is some merit to Frank Reich being a decent coach. If he can do, and it's tougher because they just traded DJ Moore and they just gave up a lot of assets. Like, can they put a decent cast around? I do think he'll be more of a boom. And I think he's got like top 10 quarterback potential. Like, he's just, when he plays and he's playing well, he is really just tremendous.
I think we're 6 weeks away from the NFL draft, if I'm doing my math correctly, really, really quickly. Who are some names that maybe we're not talking about that we should be?
And so that's going to be kind of up to the teams. I think if you were looking for maybe a little bit more speed at receiver, Tank Dell out of Houston, I think he'd be a good pick. But, again, he's got size concerns. So he's someone that dominated one-on-one reps. Really elusive. He wins every single rep that you see at the Senior Bowl, even on his tape. But where do you take a guy that's 165, 170 pounds? Yeah, historically, there's not really a lot of comparisons for that. I think the running back position is going to be the one where you're going to see the most value. And we seem to say that a lot, but this is really a great draft. I really love Sean Tucker out of Syracuse. I think he's probably my guy in this draft. I think he's just a 3-down guy. You can get in there, get him the ball in space, probably be a starter. And then in 4 or 5 years, yeah, you might be looking to replace him, but you're going to be like, wow, we just got one of the best values in the league, like Miles Sanders. Really good example of that. Somebody who you can pick in this day 2, maybe early day 3, someone that has no business going that late, but because of the depth of the. I think Nolan Smith out of Georgia, he is more of a familiar name. He's just such a winner throughout this draft process. He was talked about 2nd to 3rd round. If he doesn't go in the 1st round, it's purely because of medical concern. He has just been dominating these workouts. You go back to the tape, you watch Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith is there. Edge rushers are tough. Usually, if you're not going in the 1st round, your hit rate is pretty low. But Keon White out of Georgia Tech is another guy who I think should be in that top 25 discussion. Probably is going to be like either late 1st, maybe to mid-2nd, somewhere in there, depending on scheme. But you can't wait too late on those guys.
When you look at Carter being 9 pounds overweight, not doing some of the stuff that he did at his pro day, how much has his, and then everything off the field, how much has his stock dropped here, Ian?
I think it has dropped. I don't know that the arrest that he just pleaded no contest to, I don't know that was going to be something that really had a major effect. I mean, that's not an insignificant amount. I think that at his size, kind of those 3 techs don't really weigh that much anymore. Jordan Davis was huge last year, but he was a little bit different in the way that he played. You didn't mind seeing him at 346. It wasn't a bad thing, but for Jalen Carter, you probably want him at like 350. 10, someone hands on his knees, struggling to finish workouts. That's just a tough look for a guy who's, I think, probably by far the best player in the draft. Like, if you look at just his tape, he is just an absolute dominant force. He was better than Jordan Davis was, and Jordan Davis was a phenomenal prospect last year. So he has all the talent in the world. He should be the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick overall, barring a quarterback going there. But now we're talking about maybe bottom of the top 10. I'm not sure that you can take that risk until you start getting into those picks. And then there's like that Laramie Tunsil range where it's like, okay, eventually maybe the person that we want him to be, just the talent is too immense. But that's a really tough thing to juggle, especially nowadays, because so many of these guys are really great. They're really stellar. They're a lot more aware, I think, than 20, 30 years ago. And social media is a big part of that. Like, their brand, their image, all that stuff they're very aware of that and getting involved with positive things off the field. And so it's tough to see a top prospect kind of struggling right now as he faces adversity.
Ian, always insightful stuff. Love our chats, man. We'll talk again very soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Enjoy March Madness.
You got it. You as well. Ian Wharton. Give me a good feel about the upcoming NFL draft. And it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, it really will as we get the buildup in terms of who Carolina goes with the number 1 overall pick. I said it before. I still believe that
I think they're taking Stroud.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that's the right pick, but I think they're taking Stroud. He just looks the part.
Well, and Ian said he would say it's either Stroud or Richardson. Now,
I can't take Richardson 1.
I mean, neither can I. I mean, I'm going to take a guy number 1 overall that I'm going to sit for 2 years.
Yeah. And for and we've seen some of these unpolished QBs get their chances and most of them don't work out.
Right. Agreed. I mean, I totally agree.
And who knows? Maybe Anthony Richardson may end up turning into Josh Allen. He might. And if you get Josh Allen, you're ecstatic. You're like, oh my God, I crushed this. Or are you getting, I mean, you know what? Or maybe you get Cam Newton. If you get Cam Newton, you're happy too. You had 4 really good years out of Cam, 5 really good years out of Cam.
No, if you get Cam Newton, that'd be great. But it's an if.
A lot of ifs there.
Yeah, a lot of ifs. He was highly inaccurate, and it's a matter of if you're going to have patience as an organization to where he's not playing. I don't care what happens on the field. He's not playing. I don't care if your starting quarterback goes down to injury. You find another veteran quarterback. He is not playing.
Well, think about Tennessee, right? They tried Malik Willis. It didn't work. And who'd they go to? Hobbs or whatever his name was. Dobbs.
Right. Josh Dobbs, right. Who was a huge star at Tennessee. So can you stay true to your convictions before the start of the year if you're an NFL team that drafts Anthony Richardson and say, I don't care what the hell happens on the field, he is not playing. It does not matter what happens. It's not a possibility. We need to handle him like the asset he is.
Yep.
And if we handle him correctly, then we think as an organization, we're going to benefit for it for the next 10 to 12 to 13 years. But here's the other problem, Keith, is that we all see it in the National Football League time and time again. When you draft a quarterback that's young, what do you want to do? You want to win.
Yeah.
You want to initially try and win under that rookie quarterback deal because you're not paying him a ton of money. And so therefore you can spend in other spots, whether it be offensive, defensive line, cornerback, edge linebacker, whatever it might be in free agency, and you can go do that. So it's going to go against a lot of the stuff that we've heard in the National Football League. But I think Ian just nailed it. It's depending on the spot that you land, and you can be patient with him. Can you be patient? Can you wait? Can you resist the temptation to put him in the lineup? Because I don't think it's going to be benefit to him for him to start early in his NFL career.
I think the Texans are in a great spot.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather someone else make the decision for me. The Panthers are going to take somebody, and then the Texans are going to be able to choose one of the other two because Will Levis isn't there anymore. And I think it's fine.
True.
Right? Cardinals are not taking a quarterback, and then the Colts might take the other guy.
But let me ask you this. What about if you were in love with more than one than the other?
If you're the Texans.
Yes.
What
about if you love Stroud just as much? What about if you look at there's a great difference between Stroud and Young in your eyes, and you look at Stroud and be like, oh man, we're not going to be able to get our guy. We like Bryce, but we don't love Bryce. We love Stroud. Then what do you do if you're the Texans?
I mean, I guess you could try to trade up, right? Flop the one.
I don't
and the
think.
two,
I mean,
but
you're going to have to pay.
I mean, that premium would be.
Plus, I don't, like I said before, Carolina's not making the move that they made, giving up what they gave up if they don't have a guy that they pinpointed and
they
said
have
that's our
to
franchise
know.
quarterback.
Yeah.
They have to know. The whole idea of, well, we're still evaluating. Oh, we don't really know. No. You know. You don't give up DJ Moore, the draft capital that you gave up, all of that to say, well, willy-nilly, well, it could be Young or Stroud. I would have to believe within that organization, unless something drastically changes, I know who I'm going with.
Because if they believe that, they could have just traded with the Texans and not given up as much.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in theory, right? They could have traded with the Colts and not given up as much.
And no two prospects are one and the same.
No.
Like nobody loves two prospects just as equal. There's going to be something that separates them. That's what scouts are doing all season long in order to separate people, in order to make, I like this guy more than I like this guy. I have questions about this guy, concerns about this guy. What's the work ethic? What's the motivation? All the things. Is his game going to translate into the National Football League? And we know how much of an inexact science it is when you look at the quarterback position in the NFL and trying to predict how a college quarterback translates to the National Football League and if it'll work. We see one bust after another get picked. And if you're Carolina, I would have to believe that, and you're in agreement as well, that somebody separated themselves.
Yep.
So
you saw something that said, I need that guy.
Right, the Bears. So let me ask you this then. If you're the Colts and say it's not Young, then you draft Richardson second overall and you have him sit?
Well, the Texans are too.
I mean, the Texans. I'm talking about if you're the Texans, do you draft Richardson and say, okay, because about a week ago, they were in on Garoppolo before he went to Vegas.
No one else is left. Your boys got Brissett. You saw that, the Commanders?
Yeah.
Jacoby.
Dude, that does nothing.
Sam and Jacoby. It sounds like a law firm.
I walked into Picks yesterday, and one of the other anchors, Justin, was like, Jacoby Brissett, what do you think? I go, nothing.
Yeah.
I go, it does nothing for me.
You've reached the Washington law firm.
I go, I don't know what, like that does nothing for me. It really doesn't. I don't know what to say. Like, it is what it is.
He's a winner. Is he? I don't know.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Washington's got so many issues, Keith. They really do.
Yeah.
So what are you eating today for the tournament?
I know there's going to be some sort of onion dip. I got a bunch of bags of chips. I got some. I'm bringing Oreos over there. I'm going off. It's funny. I was talking to my sister yesterday, and I'm like, man, I've been like extra clean eating the last 2 weeks. I'm going to feel horrible tomorrow.
What's the main thing? I
don't know.
Spinach dip is great. With the
there's a spinach dip. There's an onion dip. There's some bread stuff, and the guy that's hosting us just said that when we all get there, we'll order in food for lunch.
Oh, there you go. I love it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to get over there. Hopefully, I'll be over there by like 1:00.
I love that.
Yeah. And now, and we have someone taking Alex to soccer tonight, so I don't have to rush home. I can just hang.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to hang all day. Jackson's got hockey tryouts at 5, but
I'm
looking forward. Nobody's home for the
there
next 2.5 hours. It's just me.
Eat some food, watch some games,
make myself a little omelet, have a nice breakfast, and away you go.
All healthy. Look at you, all healthy.
There'll be sausage in the omelet and some cheese.